Spirals, mildew, transautomatism, Hundertwasser. Friedrich Hundertwasser. He was a painter, an architect, and an environment philosopher. He was born Friedrich Stowasser, and in 1949 he changed the Slavic sto, which means 100, into the German 100, also means 100, and Friedrich to Friedensreich. Photo of him in 1947 in Vienna. Friedensreich means peaceland or peaceful. And the other names he chose for himself was Regentag, meaning rainy day, he loved the rain, and Dunkelbunt, colors glowing in the dark. Thus, Friedensreich Hundertwasser means peace kingdom 100 water. And Dunkelbunt, this is my Dunkelbunt. I collect skulls in the campo, I bleach them, and because I love Hundertwasser, I do my little Hundertwasser. Early life and work. Here's a photo, 1932, with his mama, Elsa. And before he was 20, can you all hear me? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Before he was 20, all of his relatives on his mother's side, including his aunt and grandmother, were killed in the Holocaust. His mother was Jewish, and the family avoided persecution by posing as Christians. A credible ruse because Hundertwasser's father was Catholic. His father died when Hundertwasser was 9. To remain inconspicuous, Hundertwasser joined the Hitler Youth. Can you imagine how dangerous that is? 15 years old, he draws. And what does he draw? Houses and trees. Important to know how he started. Houses and trees. A portrait of his mother, and a Vienna countryside with houses and trees. More landscape with a church, which is a Ravenna church with a cupola, and a self-portrait when he was 19 years old. Already at 19 years old, you can see in this pencil self-portrait that there is something different about this human being. Extreme sensitivity, très sensible, at the point of vulnerability. But it is within vulnerability that you get your strength. A nude and the portrait of his mother, and another self-portrait when he's 20. Oh, he's getting there. Don't mess with him. He's going to be his own man. He goes to Italy and Sicily. Streets, water, boats. Road to Assisi, where we start to feel a style coming in. And a street urchin from Venice. And I couldn't resist comparing his street urchin to Georges Moreau, early expressionist, the clown. 1949, Siena, person with soul trees. Trees of souls. And I couldn't resist again the comparison with another expressionist, Emile Bölde, except ye become as little children, the colors and the distortion of the faces. In Florence, he met René Brault, French, and he followed him to Paris. And in Saint-Mandé, in the suburbs of Paris, they're going to create in 1950 a mural. And here they are. 1950 Paris indeed, he enrolled at l'École des Beaux-Arts, but he left after a day. Oh no, nobody was going to tell him what to do, what to think, what to see, and how to do it, and how to see it. Saint-Mandé, 1950, woman with balloons. Notice the striped skirt and the balloons, which are already prophetizing his lollipops and his onion rings and his other things. For years, he traveled the world and painted on a reconstructed roller sailboat, which he called Regentag, rainy day. The Regentag was a significant phase of his life. It was his home, his country, his headquarters. He lived and painted on it for 10 years. A nomad, or a Viking, because after all, he was born in Vienna. Vikings were there first. The Regentag was a manifestation of his free spirit personality. A book called Jour de pluie, rainy day, Regentag. His traveling thirst took him to Morocco, Tunisia, Sudan, Uganda, Israel, Nepal, Japan, Denmark, Cape Verde Islands, Tahiti, Europe, Egypt, USA, Siberia, the Balkans. And here is his appreciation of Marrakesh. Over the Balkans, he's going to paint Irina Land in 1969. He also owned a farm cottage in Normandy called La Picaudière. He loved trees, simple living, rustic, near to Mother Earth. And he also owned a modest cabin in New Zealand. And this is, well, he loved to live naked, he didn't shave much, and this is his hot tub. Hundertwasser's woman, not happy in love. No. When he was 25 years old, he met a 16-year-old Austrian-Italian girl named Herta Leitner. Even though he liked the girl, he was not very happy when she begged him to marry her. He said, oh, okay, when we reach Gibraltar, we'll get married. And then he tried to delay the journey. He eventually got married in 1958. He divorced 2 years later. Herta was deeply influenced by her Nazi parents. And then he married again in 1962 to the Japanese artist Yuko Ikewada. They divorced in 1966. I don't think there was, in his time, any woman ready to live the way he wanted to live and accept his way, his perception of life. His political views, very important. As a result of his experience of persecution by the Nazi regime, Hundertwasser developed an anti-totalitarian position right from the beginning. His fears of the square marching battalions associated with dictatorships led him to oppose the, what I call, geometrization of people and their architecture. In a letter from 1954, Hundertwasser described the square as geometric rectangles, compressed columns on the march. That when the goose step comes like that, you are on a straight line. Didn't like that. Hundertwasser and the Dalai Lama. Love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. And here is the painting he painted for the Dalai Lama, the flight of the Dalai Lama. And notice the colors it shows. The colors of the sacred robe, orange and rusty orange, which are the colors of sacredness for the Tibetan wise. Hundertwasser got involved with helping the Dalai Lama escape from Tibet by campaigning for the Tibetan leader in Karl Laszlo magazine Panderma. He was indeed born in Vienna on the 15th of December 1928, and I'm so happy I'm a Sagittarius like him. Nothing to do with anything, but anyway. Vienna, the city of music, the birthplace of psychoanalysis with Freud, Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven, Schubert, Brahms, Strauss, Mahler, all worked there. Vienna, the roots of the big great Vienna, lie in early Celtic or Celtic settlements 500 years before our common era. The name Vienna derives from the Celtic word vindo, meaning bride, or fair, maybe linking it to the blonde hair of the Vikings. The triple or triple, the triple spiral or triskele symbolizes eternity and the three realms of land, sea, and sky. After graduating from school, he decided to study in Robin Christian Andersen's masterclass at the Academy of Fine Arts of Vienna. Due to the feeling that he could not develop artistically freely, he stopped attending class 3 months later. Now we're going to see a lot of cupolas in Hundertwasser's work. And indeed, Vienna was surrounded by, you would say, monuments or churches, but architecture with cupolas. He also loved onions. But cupolas, yes, onions, yes, but most importantly, the psilocybin mushroom. Who knows what the psilocybin mushroom is? Psychedelic art? Yes, indeed. Hundertwasser created some of his works under the influence of psilocybin mushroom. The effects of the psilocybin was quickly converted by the body to psilocybin, which has mind-altering similar effects to those of LSD or mescaline. And the effects include euphoria, visual and mental hallucinations, distorted perceptions of time and space, and many spiritual experiences. Psychedelic art is any art or visual displays inspired by psychedelic experiences and hallucinations, known to follow the ingestion of psychoactive drugs such as LSD and psilocybin. The actual word psychedelic means mind manifesting. Used in indigenous cultures in religious, divinatory, spiritual context, it reflects the meaning of the word antheogen, Greek for the gone within. Entheoasma is the breath of God inside of you when you're enthusiastic. At school they always tell me, you'll never get anywhere, you're too enthusiastic. Thank you, teachers. The psilocybin mushroom is revered as powerful spiritual sacraments that provide access to sacred worlds. Typically used in small group community settings, it enhances group cohesion and reaffirms traditional values, like the Huichole here and the Peyote. Gustav Klimt, Vienna. An influence? An inspiration? Most certainly. If you look at the way Klimt used spirals, bubbles, decoration, ornament, but the way that Hundertwasser is going to expand the dress of Klimt into the whole canvas, yes, there is more than an affinity. Ornament to Klimt is a metaphor of matter itself in a state of perpetual mutation, ceaselessly evolving, turning, spiraling, undulating, twisting, a violent whirlwind that assumes all shapes. But also, and nobody says it, those spirals link back to the Celtic triskele. Eh oui. Another inspiration was Egon Schiele, who was Klimt's protégé. Young Girl by Egon Schiele and Houses with Drying Laundry by Hundertwasser. And you, the house, how can you compare? You don't compare the subject matter, you compare the feeling that oozes out. And the feeling that oozes out of Hundertwasser, Houses with Drying Laundry, is not happiness. Hundertwasser, the drawing, the painting, the actual architecture, and the painting. We'll see more about that. Distortion. Can you see the COC being working here? Hundertwasser nude with ornament. And I leave that to Egon Schiele, reclining nude and woman hairdressing. Not only by the use of orange, but by the color field and the painted nipples and the oozing wounded knees. Can you see the wounded knees in Hundertwasser and Egon Schiele? And indeed the painting, Mourning Schiele. With tears, with his face erased. Now let's come to spirals. A whirlpool and a cactus. We are surrounded by spirals. Cosmic, Nautilus, pinecone, a fern, a sunflower, a man-made coil, a man-made staircase, a rose, a snail, a worm, not a worm, but you know this little millipede that curls, and a hypnotic spiral, because indeed the spiral is a visual mantra. You don't utter words, you look at it, and the spiral will take you to another level of consciousness. The spiral of life is the cosmic spiral. It's evolution growth, universe in constant motion, mind-altering creative process, DNA, water, and whom do we have at the end? The dervish tourneur. And how does he dance, the dervish tourneur? He spirals his headband, he spirals until he leaves the reality of our flesh and reaches a cosmic, mystical, spiritual realm. I love etymology. Spiral is actually about life and death. It comes from the Latin spirare, which means souffler, to blow, to breathe. Latin spiratio, respiration. But that came from the Greek etymon root spera. Look at the words below. Respiration, aspiration, spirituality, inspiration, expiration. Life and death in the spiral. This spiral lies at that very point where inanimate matter is transformed into life. I am convinced that the act of creation took place in form of a spiral. And that's before the scientific knowledge we know about the DNA, about the fractals, and about the universe expanding, NASA photographs. Our whole life proceeds in spirals. To be linked to the Jewish mystical spiral, a path to the soul, a metaphysical inquiry, intuition, and ideality. Hundertwasser and the spiral. Inspiration green and the spiral lollipops in front of a building made me think of a tree trunk. Remember in early work that he called soul trees? Lollipops indeed. And a tree trunk with his painting called, oh yes, it happens to a lot of good people. Island of lost desire. Hundertwasser and trees. Tree consciousness is walking in Milan in the 70s. It reminds me of our Harold and Maude. You know, when Maude puts the trees and brings them back into the countryside. It's just a cult movie, Harold and Maude. We can see the other. And his garden balconies in Vienna. But it's also linked to his Jewish background of Tu B'Shvat, which is a Jewish holiday celebrating trees. It's also called Rosh Hashanah Ha'alanot, literally, New Year of the Trees. In contemporary Israel, the day is celebrated as an ecological awareness day, and trees are planted in celebration. And it's in fact part of the mitzvot you have at least to plant 1 tree in your lifetime. Hundertwasser planted over 60,000 trees during his career, many as tenants of his architectural projects. Here he is among the foliage of his trees. Gosh, I love him. The spiral labyrinth, the great path. Our Earth describes a spiral course. We move in circles, but we never come back to the same point. The true spiral is not geometric, but vegetative. It has swellings, becomes thinner and thicker, and flows around obstacles which are in your way. Spirals and spider webs. Respect the spider webs. Spiral with tears. The spiral shows life and death in both directions. Starting from the center, the infinite small, the spiral means birth and growth. But by getting bigger and bigger, the spiral dilutes into the infinite space and dies off like waves who disappear in the calm waters. So not only is a philosopher, but he's also a poet. Le petit chemin, the little way, and tempest in a glass of water. When you can see a distortion of the spiral into a labyrinthian, puzzle-like path of life. Window, that I also link to a spider web. Close-up of infinity, Tagore's sun. The spiral grows and dies like a plant. The lines of the spiral, like a meandering river, follows the laws of growth of a plant. It takes its own course and goes along with it. In this way, the spiral makes no mistakes. Who is Tagore? His real name is Rabindranath Tagore. Easier to say Tagore. A wise man, if there is one, from extremely poor Calcutta. And I'm going to share with you some of his wisdom that has infused the heart, soul, and mind of Hundertwasser. He was the first non-European to win the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913. And this is some of his wisdom that I want to share with you. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. A mind or logic is like a knife or blade. It makes the hand bleed that uses it. The highest education is that which does not merely give us information, but makes our life in harmony with all existence. If only people at the government, people in the corporations could get 1% of this wisdom, we wouldn't be in the mess we are in today. Right? By plucking her petals, you do not gather the beauty of the flower. Love is the only reality, and it is not a mere sentiment. It is the ultimate truth that lies at the heart of creation. Hundertwasser and color. I do not depend on stores. Hundertwasser grinds his own colors. He then mixes them with oil, egg, acrylic, polyvinyl, and wax. He says, to a high degree, I want to be independent, even where paint is concerned. And secondly, the colors you buy in the store are not so good. They are so finely ground that they don't have a soul anymore. When I grind them myself, they are much rougher. They have a texture you can see and feel. There are no colors you can buy which have a feeling and a life. This is one of the secrets of my paintings. Now, I don't grind my colors, but I go in the street and I take the sand, or the gravel, and I mix it. And it gives some texture. Gosh, I wish I had met him. About colors, Hundertwasser colors seem psychedelic. Then nature is psychedelic. Look at this fish.
Yeah.
I could have put, there's so many flowers and birds and fish, only one is sufficient to show you that nature itself is about converting the mind. It is psychedelic. Hundertwasser and his chromatic typewriter. Hundertwasser painted wherever he was, at home, in nature, on the road, in cafes and restaurants, on the train, on airplanes, in hotels, at the home of friends or acquaintances he was visiting. He had no studio. He did not paint at an easel, but instead spread the canvas or the paper on the floor, like the Japanese or the Chinese, and just painted. But not schlick, schlack, or pollock. No. When I see it, it's as if painted from near above. Isn't that so? As if he has a vision from high above. Maybe the petit machin chose là, le petit loli, the mushroom, helped elevate his vision. He called his theory of art trans-automatism, based on surrealist automatism, but focusing on the experience of you, the viewer, rather than the artist. Love is something. So when you look at Hundertwasser, you don't pass by as it is wallpaper. You find a little point of interest, and you go and you feel. This trans-automatism allows you many things. The trans-automatic work provokes the birth in you, the beholder, of an individual mobile painting. Your individual cinema, which has always existed, but in your unconscious. Le gazon de l'homme démuni, la barbe, the beard, but it's called the lawn of the man who has been taken away from himself. Trans-automatism is an interactive process between subject and object. In this labyrinthian spiral with the center, he calls Je ne le sais pas encore. I do not know it yet. What humility? I think humility is one of the greatest qualities we could bestow on a human being. And what it gains. Definitely psycho aussi. The art of seeing, it's an art to see, not just to look. To see is to create. Visual impotence is analphabetism. Now, this is an immense thought. Is against the educational system which exterminates creative power. Because of the increasing and brutal cretin inability of the individual, which expresses itself in standardization, socialization, regulation, sterilization, a new and terrible form of analphabetism is being born. And we are full in it. Not up to the knees, up to the neck. Quicksand, very dangerous. To see the layers and membranes of a painting. Hundertwasser is giving us a new dimension of perception. Look at this window. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, small. It allows you to travel. You are not incarcerated in what the system wants you to become, a functional pawn, abused, misused, red streets, black veins of blood, human environment. There is a little door in red into this tower phallic architecture going to the sky. A biomorphic, fractal, cellular reality. I'm not ostentatious with words. Cellular, you understand. Fractal means self-similarity, repeated ad infinitum, with a possibility of irregularity. Mandelbrot, after Einstein. Look at that. It's not a dédoublement. How many, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are more than 12 faces. It's all about him. It's all about the many facets we have within ourselves. But for some odd reason, no, it's not odd reason, the system has put you into following only one facet. Mm-hmm. And if you have many facets, they think you're not, well, now that's very good. That's in the depth of darkness, you see what good there, good there. Poster for the Munchen Olympics. He did a lot of posters. You can see the onions and the mushrooms and the coconuts. They're all over. The downtown lanes upside down, you don't know where you are. Distortion of perception of time and space. 1959, the Pintorarium, not an art school, but a school for the art of the seeing, the art of thinking and living. Arnold Reiner Gross was one of the co-founders of the Pintorarium, and so was Ernest Fox, Hundertwasser's friend, also a co-founder of the Pintorarium. It was a school of life where everybody is expected to learn how to recognize his own freedom. And a page of the Pintorarium, and it really looks like to me like a page of the Talmud. You have a core and then lots of commentaries all around, and everything is important. The 60s, Japan. He received the Mainichi Prize at the 6th International Art Exhibition in Tokyo. And can you see him at the back in the crowd? Woo, in Tokyo. And look what he did there. Incinerator in Osaka. I'm a little girl, and I take the metro, the tube with my mother. And I see, you know, and all those horrible tubes. And I said to my mother, oh no, if it were me, I would paint it all. I didn't know anything about Hundertwasser. Look, we spent an hour in the tube, and all we see is this dusty old charcoal gray. What about if we painted it with all colors? And after that, she bought me a book on Hundertwasser. But I still have, dedicated to you. She's 86 now. Hundertwasser was the first European painter whose work was cut and printed by Japanese masters. So I'm going to show you a few examples. Joy of Man. All those are Japanese prints done by Japanese masters after the work of Hundertwasser. This one too, but here I want you to notice a little something. I don't know if I can reach, but you see those little... There's something happening, growing there. Can you see it? Remember that. The right to a third skin, late 60s. A nude demonstration and speech in Munich. It is my conviction that man is surrounded by 3 layers: his skin, his clothing, and a building. Clothing and buildings have undergone a development in the last centuries which is not longer in tune with nature and the requirements of the individual. As a consequence of the mass aspects of society, inappropriate things are forced on the individual. To protest against these circumstances in the realm of architecture was the purpose of my demonstration. My undressing served to protest against the oppression through clothing and shoes. Now the naked individual in the natural state was to be established the herald of protest and placed alongside corrected architecture. But there are two more skills. The social environment and the planetary skill, the biosphere, the earth crust. And there is an interconnectedness between man and his environment. An etching with little lollipops, bubbles, onions, macaroons. A lithograph. Hundertwasser and mildew. There are no evils in nature. There are only evils of man. Mildew or fungi or mold growth. He absolutely loved mildew. Mold of concrete walls in a little street behind where I live in Paris, and I took these photographs. Abstract painting does not exist. If you look around you, it's there. It's figurative or non-figurative. But abstract, what we call abstract, is a heresy. Look around you and you will find it already there. 1958, the Moldiness Manifesto. We should be glad when rust settles on a razor blade, when a wall grows moldy, or when moss grows over the geometric angles of a corner, because together with microbes and mushrooms, life thus moves into a house, and through this process we more consciously become witnesses of the architectural changes from which we must learn. The swelling of moldiness must make structures ferment and smash the straight lines. The straight line is the death of humanity. Just carrying a ruler with you in your pocket should be forbidden. At least on a normal basis. The ruler is the symbol of the new literacy. The ruler is the symptom of the new disease, disintegration of our civilization. And this is where he lived in Hamburg, and you can see that he painted over his windows and walls everything but a straight line. You're alive, but when it goes like that, straight lines. Read that. If a lion is stalking you, or a shark is out to kill you, you are of course in mortal danger. We have lived with these dangers for millions of years. The straight line is a man-made danger. There are so many lines, millions of lines, but only one of them is deadly, and that is the straight line drawn with a ruler. The danger of the straight line cannot be compared with the danger of organic lines described by snakes, for instance. The straight line is completely alien to mankind, to life, to all creation. It is a fiction that exists everywhere you live. Our whole civilization is founded on the straight line. The straight line came to humanity with a brick and with modular construction. Why force humans to live in box houses? Architecture without a soul, without ethics, dehumanizes. And here I love myself, my humble homage, collage, where I say no to concrete and skyscrapers. Stop, the end. And French-English collage poem against the skyscrapers and the boxed-in souls of humans. So he's called the architecture doctor. His architecture is linked to environment. What do you notice here? What's on the top? What we lack is a peace treaty with nature. An uneven floor is a melody to the feet. I was dreaming that the paintings were nothing but sketches and models for bigger things. I close my eyes halfway just as when I conceive paintings and I see the house dunkelbunt instead of ugly beige color, and green meadows on all roofs instead of concrete. And here he is playing with his models.
Wow. Yeah.
The pioneer of modern vegetated roofs, the father of grass roofs, Hundertwasser's building all have some of the most intensive vegetated roofs in the world, covered with trees and grasses. Here are some models. More models. And in this one, it shows you how if you compost your own excrements, you can go and feed the tree in the whole cycle. For Hundertwasser, human misery is a result of the rational, sterile, monotonous architecture. He called for a boycott of this type of architecture and demanded instead creative freedom of building and the right to create individual structures. In 1972, he published a manifesto, Your Window Right, Your Tree Duty. Planting trees in an urban environment was to become obligatory. A person in a rented apartment must be able to lean out of his window and scrape off the masonry within arm's reach, and he must be allowed to take long brushes and paint everything outside within arm's reach. So that it will be visible from afar to everyone in the street that someone lives there, who is different from the imprisoned, enslaved, standardized man who lives next door. He did a whole lot of posters. Plant trees, avert nuclear peril. Save the rain. Each raindrop is a kiss from heaven. Save the whales, save the seas. You are a guest of nature, behave. Exactement. Survival or suicide? Rainforest. What's happening today? For the corporations, with the palm oil and the meat for hamburger, they are deforesting, and the pili puka, they exist, they are being decimated. Use public transport, save the city, children, and the environment. There is a freshness about his work. He doesn't try to be anything else but himself. It's magnifique. Conservation Week in New Zealand. And the last one is Among Trees You Are at Home. He planted trees in the Negev desert. Hundertwasser was also an advocate of composting toilets and the principle of constructed wetlands, being green and ahead of his time. He perceived feces not as nauseous, but as part of the cycle of nature. His beliefs are testified by his manifesto, Holy Shit! And his guide for building the composting toilet. Model for ship-shaped housing, 98. Of course, we have to talk about Gaudi, because a lot of his architecture, non-linear, is almost like a homage to Gaudi. Hundertwasser's house in Vienna with the cobblestones going up and down. The heating plant in Vienna. The Grüne Citadelle. In Napa Valley, the Quixote Winery. He even made the label for the wine. In Vienna, the thermal power plant. The observation tower in South Germany, 30 meters high, 6 meters diameter, and completed 10 years after his death. That's the front view. That's the back view. The house interior. Hundertwasser designed self-advertisement. He made a lot of money with it. This car, for example, with all the money, he lived ever so frugally, planting trees and making sure that he could, because nobody was going to pay for his architecture. Clothing. He also wove tapestries. Boy peeing and skyscrapers. More tapestries. John made books. Wow. Encyclopedias, that wherever you open it, has the image. 92, playing with his architectural blocks. The spiral hand drinking fountain in Linz. Another fountain. He made stamps. He made coins. He made casino chips. He made phone cards. In Tokyo, he built the countdown clock for the 21st century. He made furoshiki book wrapping. Created the flag for Australia, the Uhuru flag, and the peace flag for my beloved land. The Koru flag, based on the Maori spiral Koru flag, Hundertwasser gifted the Koru flag to New Zealand in appreciation of becoming a New Zealand citizen. The Maori spiral, the Koru, it means a loop. The Koru design derives from a new unfurling silver frond, symbolizing new life, growth, strength, and peace. The circular shape of the Koru helps to convey the idea of perpetual movement, while the inner coil suggests a return to the point of origin. Maori Koru designs. The Maori are Polynesian voyagers who migrated from eastern Polynesia to what is now known as New Zealand in the latter part of the first millennium. The tamoko is a traditional Maori tattooing. It is a sacred tanga, treasure, and every moko contains ancestral tribal messages specific to the wearer, telling the personal story of the wearer's family and his tribal affiliations. Notice again the non-straight line and the spiral. The Tiriti Wetangi was a British fraud treaty, first signed February 6, 1840, by representatives of the British Crown and various Maori chiefs. The treaty established a British governor of New Zealand, recognizing Maori ownership of the lands and other properties, and giving the Maori the rights of British subjects. This is not what happened. It's only like 10 years, 15 years ago that the Maori people came again into their being, re-tattooing their chin, re-tattooing their face, regaining their identity. Like in all empires, they were treated like the Aborigines in Australia. It's a sad story. That's another story. So when he goes to New Zealand, for him, it's paradise found. He does exactly what he wants. And look at that. This is a little home of his. But where and when did we see that before? In Iceland, the houses are still like that today. Not everyone. And they date back to the Vikings with a turf house. Oui. And this is contemporary Irish architecture following Hundertwasser's wishes. Public toilets in Kawakawa. Nice to go pee there. Inside. More of inside. And a mural that he did in Kawakawa. 98, the Atlantis mural in Lisbon, made of ceramic. Hundertwasser considered New Zealand as his official home, and no matter where he went in the world, his watch was always set to New Zealand time. That finally became the place where he was buried after his death at sea in the year 2000 of congestive heart failure. This is the tulip tree in 2008, growing on Hundertwasser's humus body in the garden of the happy days. I am looking forward to become humus myself, buried naked without coffin under a tree on my land in Aotearoa. If we destroy our roots, we cannot grow. Goosebumps. And that, alors là, ça c'est quelque chose de magnifique. When we dream alone, it's only a dream. But many dream together, and it is the beginning of a new reality. I should perhaps like to be known as the magician of vegetation. I feel a picture until it is full of magic. And you can spend hours looking at one of his paintings, especially this one. It's cellular, it's growing, it's alive. As humans, we have lost our connection to the organic geometry of nature. Imagine tomorrow's world. Thank you, Hundertwasser. When he was in Nicaragua, he wrote, "The best way to answer violence is creativity." And I think that's the end of this one. That's 6 years ago when my father was 80 years old. And in Paris, they had an exhibition of Hundertwasser for children. I have not yet seen a full exhibition at the Beaubourg or at the Modern Art Museum. That was only for children. Better than nothing. Chaque maison, même laide et malade, peut être guérie. Every house, even ugly and sick, can be cured. Non, mais c'est magnifique cette œuvre. That's inside the little exhibition for the children. Peindre, c'est rêver. To paint is to dream. Quand je peins, je rêve. When I paint, I dream. Quand le rêve est terminé, when the dream is over, je ne m'en souviens pas. I don't recall it. Mais la peinture est là. But the painting is there. La maison est le miroir de l'homme. The house is the mirror of man. Si je peins les fleurs, au lieu de les presser, elles garderont leur couleur. Bonheur. If I paint the flowers instead of pressing them, they will keep their colors. Happiness. Houses can cry. The houses are our third skin, and they can cry and bleed. And the exhibition, there were little photographs of him as a little boy, and him with his odd cow socks like Einstein, and photographs of him planting trees in urban environment, him on the Regen cap. This is little place he had on the boat. His compost. A self-portrait. And this is my papa. They have a big image with the whole, and you know like they do for the tourists, you put your hand in. So they do that for the kid, but this is my papa. He's still alive. He was then 80. And below the gallery, there was an arrangement of plants growing to cover all those air-conditioned awful tubes. Isn't that magnificent? Voilà. Oh, bravo.